Why does it seem like no one gives a shit about anything that's going on in the world unless it has something to do with television or another person's lifestyle or the way a person acts that is completely irrelevant to the general population? Why does it seem like I'm so alone? You know, I developed these connections on YouTube because there are very few people in this world that I feel like I can associate with on a level that's respectable, understandable for all parties. And why do people have to be such assholes? And I'm not talking about being a jerk. I'm talking about being an asshole out of pure ignorance. The ultimate asshole isn't the one who acts like a jerk, because those are the easiest to pick out. It's those who choose to ignore the bigger picture. And we're living in a world today that is so distant from anything we knew in the past. It has completely changed. And I know that each one of us experiences events in our life that lead us to our adulthood. And we tend to carry on these same things that we tell our kids that were told to us. Like, get a job, you know, do your part in society, whatever. They tell us what's important, what our values should be. And whenever I speak about something that's important out to a group of people or to one person, whatever it may be, I get the roll of the eyes, and I know not a literal roll of the eyes, but the people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear about what's really going on. And I get into a discussion with someone about politics, and all of a sudden I start talking about fiat money and currency collapse, and the subject gets changed instantly because nobody wants to hear that. They want to be assholes. They want to completely ignore what's going on. And I don't blame a lot of people for doing that, but I feel like it's our obligation as humans to get our feet dirty and get our hands dirty. And we have to really get in there and see what's going on. It's a different world, guys. I mean, this is like, what I mean is like 20 years ago, as I grow, in my life, all I can base what I see, all I can base the change on earth upon is my exposure to the world. And some people may say, well, you saw things differently as a kid, which is true. You always do. And then you get older, and they say, well, then things change, and you start to see how things really are. But what we're missing is the big picture of how things are really changing on such a quick level that one generation seldom gets the chance to really change anything. It takes a building of courage among people, among families. It takes building values in your own family to teach your kids what is important. And being a parent today is fucking hard, I'll tell you that. But if you try to teach your kids, well, school isn't as important as being a good person. The rest of your society looks at you like a douche, but you're doing the right thing. The single most important thing that we can teach our kids today are values, because tomorrow, and not just values, I'm not talking about Christian values or philosophical. I'm talking more philosophical values along the lines of, what does it mean to be human, and what does it mean to be a good person, and get people thinking. But I feel like so distant from the rest of the world when I'm out there in public. And there's two ways to approach that. You can either speak up louder and just keep talking until you're heard, which most people just never listen. I know. I've been around plenty of people who don't want to hear the truth. Or you can just shut your mouth and follow along with what they say and just kind of take the American Idol approach, where you start talking about what's going on in society. I just can't do it. I can't talk about politics. I can't talk about and a lot of folks will think, hey, politics are an important part of this, but they're not. Politics are something that we need to get out of too. We need to stop fighting over who is the worst president, or who is the most corrupt person when we know that everyone's corrupt? Everyone in power is corrupted by power. Absolutely. And the world that we live in today is not just different in the sense of the things that we have, the devices that we have. It's different in the sense that a lot of people are attached to this ancient way of thinking. When people refer to our forefathers and what our forefathers wanted for this country, that's how those are the assholes. That's what I'm talking about. No offense, because I understand where they're coming from, but it's attaching yourself to a majorly outdated belief system that came along long before the technological age, long before automobiles or airplanes or massive wars or drones. We live in a different society now. First it was, every century it would change, and then it became, in 50 years, and then it was 10 years, and now it's like every year we are just doubling and tripling our capacity. And we have to decide, all of us, what we really want out of this, because there's a lot of arguing, there's a lot of name calling, there's a lot of disagreement among what really is important to research, but the issues are spread far and wide. And it's like I said once before, I remember that in the 60s, I don't remember the 60s, I remember speaking about the 60s and how the protests that they had during the Vietnam War were so strong because everyone was working together to protest one cause. And today you can see what happened, like with Occupy Wall Street. People say, oh, these guys didn't even know what they were fighting for. No, on the contrary, they knew what they were fighting for, but there were too many damn facets in order to cover the whole jewel and cut a diamond out of the rough in this fucked up situation that we live in. I'm a fighter. I'm not a pacifist, but I am a peace-loving person. And in that sense, I am making this video, I guess, to express myself in the sense that I am always willing to stand up for what I believe is right. And I think that everyone is obligated to do that as well. And not based on what someone else said, but people need to do their own homework and they need to think for themselves. And I'm an imperfect person like everyone else, and I'm just here to speak in my little corner of YouTube and talk to anyone who will listen. But I don't have any more. I'm not arrogant to think as arrogant to think that I have some major solution to all these problems. And that's why I present these ideas, is to see what other people think and see if other people have ideas that they can promote. I really want to see change in my lifetime, but I also realize that it's not going to be anything like the change that we think is going to happen. We seem to have attached to ourselves to symbols and archetypes. We think that some folks have used the archetype of Jesus that's going to come save us. Some people say that the aliens are going to come save us. Some people say the Pleiadians are going to come save us, or the interdimensional beings, or the spirits, the angels. Everyone wants someone to save us from ourselves. But the fact is, if you really look at it and you do the homework, why would they? Why would anyone save us from what we've done to ourselves? We've created archetypes with evil and Satan to explain away why these things happen, why we do bad things, and why bad things happen to good people, because we can't understand the bigger picture of nature working for the better of itself. And nature is chaotic, and nature seems unjust, but it has a purpose. And as billions of years of systematic evolution through the universe, we can see that life just wants to exist. It's not a big, crazy, free-for-all fight for power. It's a system. We live in a system. There is no dominating animal that's trying to take over because they know that they would go extinct. There's no dominating plant trying to take over because they need to exchange nutrients with other mycorrhizal relationships with mushrooms, and symbiotic relationships with other plants. And us, we are on the same path. We need to have a symbiotic relationship with every creature in our environment, including each other. And it kind of it reminds me of a South Park episode where they had PETA on there, and PETA, they were in there, trying to defend the animals and save the animals from being, I don't remember, molesting animals, or they were marrying animals or something crazy. But they said, in the end, they said, oh yeah, they're PETA. They love animals, but they hate people. And it just cracked me up. I mean, that just popped into my head, because that's how I feel. I feel like people have taken such a strong stance on what they believe to suit the environment, that they say that humans are a scourge, humans are a disease, humans should be wiped out. And I'm like, those are the assholes too. Those are the pathetic whiners that don't want to take it upon themselves to change humanity, so they try to affect their environment instead and say that it's all humans' fault, but they're part of humanity. I've heard a guy sit there and go off about how messed up and disgusting society was and how horrible it was, and we're just this pathetic disease. And then the radio guy asks him, he's like, but are you one of us? And he had to think about it for a minute. It's like people separate themselves, and we're part of nature, all of us. So I'm going to speak up about the issues that I think are important, and sometimes ones that aren't quite as important, but that I think that need to get out there. I don't speak as much on the big issues about the bankers, banking fraud, fiat money, or the desires for one world government or any of that, because I know it exists, and I really don't want to tap into it, because it's kind of no man's land. But it has nothing to do with being afraid of it. It's just that there's too much misinformation, and the fact that it's happening is obvious. So I ask my question to myself is, I always ask, what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about this situation at hand? I can't stop the banking cartels from taking what's not theirs, but I can stop buying from companies that support the loss of freedoms for people, or stop paying into funds and government loans and subsidies that help to pay these major, banking cartels and corporations. And I can choose to buy foods that are safe for my family, that I know are produced by small-time farmers. And, those are the little things that we can do as individuals. I had a picture in my head the other day, and my mom was over here, and we were talking about people who don't think they can make a difference. And she said that she was talking to someone, and the person said, well, what can I do? I'm just one person. And you hear that a lot. And the picture that popped into my head, because I see often situations as pictures, the picture that popped into my head was a commercial. And I think if I was a multimillionaire and I had the money to pay, that's what I do, is I do public announcements, if I was allowed to, on anywhere I could, to try to just get people to think more positive. And the one I thought of was to show one person standing there having a conversation, and the person says, what can I do? I'm just one person. And then the camera pans out to the whole world, and then all these people at the same time say, what can I do? I'm just one person. I know in my head it looks cooler than it probably does when I express it, but that's the kind of mentality. It's like, I'm one person, but if everyone's saying that at the same time, then we're all one person. And we all can make a difference. If every single person made a choice to speak the truth and not hide behind a curtain of shame or guilt about the things that they want to believe, then we'd be a happier place. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, it's not just the guys who aren't speaking their minds. Some of these people are speaking their minds, and they're doing it to a way that is detrimental to the movement as a whole. They're not expressing anything that's important. They are just trying to get late-breaking news and get as many views, or try to expose things that they aren't even aware if they're true or not. And I've seen a lot of this, and I try to keep my nose out of it, because, I realize that it's YouTube a lot of the time, and that's just how it is. one thing people will often bring up is say, well, this is a big issue. Why doesn't it get national attention? Why doesn't it get worldwide attention? A lot of the times it's because it's covered up. That's true. And a lot of the times it's because it just doesn't exist. That's why I made this video about chemtrails the other day, where I was talking about how, I was asking for evidence, and I was saying, here's some facts on chemtrails, what people call chemtrails, and people shouldn't fear it. There is, 8% of the Earth's crust is aluminum, and barium is used for drilling, and this and that, and there were some ideas. Naturally, it would get voted down. At least half the votes are down. Other chemtrail debunking videos are the same way. They always have lots of votes down, and all of the ones that are supporting have tons of votes up. That's because people who want to debunk chemtrails, they don't care. They just know they don't exist, at least to the extent that I'm talking about. So they don't go to these videos to try to prove themselves. However, the chemtrail believers will come to the videos trying to debunk them so they can vote them down because they feel so strongly about what they believe. And that's why people call them like dedicated believers, because it's almost a religion. A lot of these different conspiracies have become religions almost for people, to where if you even question it, then the people will vote you down. But they never have any evidence to support their claims. And this has happened to me many times. I'd make a video about something in the past. Somebody would call me and say I'm wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about, and then I would say, could you kindly show me the reference? And they'd say, well, I saw it on this video from this guy. Have you heard of this guy? And it goes on, back and forth. And I'm trying to be respectful, because I understand that I've had a lot of these beliefs in the past, but I started sifting through them, trying to figure out what's real, what's important, using common sense. My point is only that some of these issues need to be dealt with, but a lot of them are spreading us too thin. And we can combine our efforts and work towards the things we really can change. Kind of like I said, they were talking about the high barium content in the soil, and they were blaming it on chemtrails, which can never be completely proven. However, it's used 65% of all the barite mined, which is used for barium, the barium ore. 65% of it's used for well drilling, and that's used for fracking, which is huge now, and it wasn't 20 years ago. So people have someone right in front of them to blame, the mining companies, someone who's actually polluting the environment. But by blaming the airlines, there's nothing we can do about it. People are not going to stop flying. Then again, people aren't going to stop mining either. But if we get our minds together, and instead of insulting one another, saying, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, I'm always open to believe it if someone can show me evidence, because I want to believe. I want to know the truth. I do. I want 100% the truth on most subjects. But some of them are just too widespread, and there's no way to get real evidence. But it's like I've always said about Alex Jones, and the reason I hate that guy, people will go defend him to the end, and I say, hey, it's not about whether or not he's talking truth. It's about what is he omitting out of what he's speaking, and what are his resolutions to deal with the problem. Nothing. Never one resolution comes from these guys' mouths. They talk about what the government's doing. They talk about reptilians. They talk about how, we're being mind controlled, and how there are devices in our house that listen on everything we do. This and this and this, but there's never a solution on what to do. It's always grab your guns and run to the hills and hide in a bunker. It just doesn't work. We need to confront these things head on, and not with belligerent attitudes or ignorance. We need to confront them with reason and with speculation and a lot of evidence, so we can go through and figure out the truth behind all this stuff. Shit's important. Old man Carpo. Use a rubber stopper with a bolt on it. With my cap. So, I hope that's been a little bit of food for thought. I'm not trying to stir anything up, and I've been accused of being a troll more than once, which I find humorous because I don't troll. There are two kinds of people that are called trolls. Those who go around trying to cause trouble on other videos, and get people angry over things that they don't even really mean. They'll just say them to troll people. By the way, the term trolling, everyone always seems to picture this troll, as in like a little troll, green creature. The word trolling is actually a fishing term. It's where you it's where you set a fishing pole over the side of the boat and you have the line out, and it has a special little dealy bob that pulls it out, and it just trolls along the side of the boat. You're just trying to catch a fish while you're cruising. That's where it comes from. So anyway, there's two kinds of people that are called trolls. There's the ones that really do troll, that are just out there trying to get people angry. And then the other people that are called trolls are the ones that ask valid questions and the people don't want to answer them, so they just assume them to be trolls. Why is this such an important issue to me? Why do I keep saying this? Well, it's because I've seen a lot of videos on a lot of different things on YouTube, and I have gone back to comments. People have replied to me and went to my original comment, and it was voted down as spam. Whatever people can do, they'll flag it. And they were totally innocent things. Never a cuss word. A lot of them are just totally like, I've wondered this and this and this. Boom, instantly voted down. And that's what got me really thinking, why do these people do this? How do they process their thoughts? So if someone confronts them, they call them either a troll or a government shill, or say who's paying you, or what corporation do you work for? I mean, as if I'd created my entire site and do all these videos just so I can just because I work for the airline company and I'm trying to, convince people chemtrails don't exist or something. Anyway, a lot of these things, if you look at a lot of the evidence people refer to for a lot of these things, which I'm talking about, the ones that we can't do anything about or can't prove. For example, if you Google, chemtrails, I think, you'll come up with the first Google page. The first few pages are just, the first leads. And you'll think, oh, it's the first page, must be prominent, but it's just some dude's web page. And people forget that web pages are just web pages. They mean nothing. They're just held and they're hosted by the host, and they can say whatever they want to say, just like the newspapers can. So there's no real authority on the information except for you, and you have to figure this out. The reason why I brought the chemtrails in is because it's one situation I've studied for a long time on my own over the last year. I've filmed, taken pictures, documented air temperatures, and then not only Googled everything for chemtrails, but against chemtrails, just to see both sides of the story. So now I do believe that there's certain parts of the world where they're spraying chemicals and using them for refracting either radar or HARP imaging, or they could be using it for communication off of the ionosphere. It's happening in some places. So here's what happens. Something gets proven in a certain place, and then all these misinformation starts coming out, and they start assuming that everything is that way. And that's the way it's happened with politicians. One politician is corrupt as hell, so the other 10 around him must be too. And it's kind of like when you're at work and you know that you don't like what your job's doing, but you got to make a living kind of thing. And I think a lot of these people would not, would speak out if the shit really came down. A lot of these politicians are good people. And it's the same thing with military, and I don't like it when people talk down on military, but I don't know why people have to only support military. You can have your own views on what's important. But there are a lot of people out here who are worried about America descending into martial law. I've been looking into this for 20 years, and I know about every angle that I could possibly have learned that is any type of information that's out there. I've read all the books, I've looked at all the web pages, all the sites, watched all the videos, and the conclusion that I've come to is America is descending into chaos. It's going to take a while. It may happen quickly, but the fear that people have should be for their own neighbor rather than for the government, because the honest truth is when the society begins to collapse, whatever it may be, whether it's a solar flare, economic collapse, combination of the two, worldwide disaster, major earthquake, whatever it is, it's going to start a chain reaction, and we're on the brink of a point where people are going to be living in a future that's a lot different than it is now. This is my opinion. And that when you're ready for it mentally, you can handle it a lot better. But do realize that there is not going to be 10 million troops rounding people up, into FEMA camps when the shit finally goes down. And the reason being is because there just is not enough organization for... America is not ignorant enough to go along with that today. Most soldiers and most politicians and most police would go home with their families, so and probably defend their own neighborhoods. So I wouldn't worry too much about the government. I would worry more about your own neighbors and educating them and your family about how to handle yourself and what's really important. And that's being a community and loving one another and making the biggest impact we can locally. But goddamn, since we have the fucking internet, let's act globally too. Because when I make a video, I know people watch it far away, and that's the only way I would ever get heard, is through the internet. And not that what I say has any bearing or any proof. I'm just another guy, spouting, and I know I know I'm just one dude, but I know some people will agree with me and some won't, and that's what's important. I need the people who disagree, because they need to show me the truth. If there's a truth beyond what I know and there's something I'm missing, I'm totally open to it and welcome to it. But being aware is key. Not being afraid is key. And being part of society and doing the best you can is the only way to feel like you're okay. You're going to be okay. Things are going to be all right. I mean, we're detaching way too much from each other right now. I don't know why we think that we can be separate, but I think that I know the reason why we are separate. The reason why we're separate in our minds is because of materialism. Because society has taken a turn from people loving to stuff loving, and as soon as that happened, we lost our culture. We lost our heritage. And for a while, we kind of lost hope. And it's time for us to get back on our feet and back on our road. So I hope each one of you will make your effort, the best effort, to not ignore the facts, to pay attention to what's going on, to get involved in all the things you can that'll help make a change for the better. But research them enough so you're not acting in a wasteful manner with your energies on things that are either A, things that we can't resolve as individuals, or B, things that we're not sure about. Because there are C, enough things to deal with that we are aware of. And there's enough fraud within our own communities to keep us busy for many years to come. So, take action and do not fear. And one more thing. I'm full of shit.